Today, on the first episode of the 24th Man, we are joined by none other than Bath and England international Beno Obano, Oscar-winning director and OG of the SBTV F64. Beno, how are we?
Yeah, I'm all blessed, bro. I'm all
Yeah?
blessed. Chilling. Yeah. I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, thanks. Appreciate you coming on.
Always. Always.
So, mate, we're going to probably go back to the start with where you grew up, how it all began, and then, where we got to the point we are now.
Yeah. How we became friends, innit?
Yeah, well, I used to look up to you. I
Oh,
still do. I still do. I still do. But I remember, yeah, I used to look up to you. You and Lundberg, especially.
Yeah, that's my guy. You were a lot bigger back then. I swear to God, I just remember you being so massive. You had such a massive head, bro.
I was 118 clicks at 15 years old.
Yeah, man, a big
You know, times were tough though, but I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, bro. So I grew up in South London, Southeast London to be precise, and then I went to school in West London. And I basically was playing rugby there, and then I got picked up by the academy manager playing there. Like, because obviously you go to Middlesex when you're like 14, and then picked me up then, yeah, literally from the first game.
So, who was the academy manager when you first went?
It was Lloydie, Chris Lloyd.
Lloydie, yeah. And at what point did you actually realise that this was an opportunity to become something more than just someone that played rugby on the weekends?
Not until I was like 18. Maybe
Mm.
not even lying, maybe not even until 19. To be fair. Not even probably when I moved to Bath, like when I was at Wasps still. So maybe because I was at home and stuff, I didn't really think like I was always coming. I was traveling from ends all the way to Acton, and I was just doing that, and it just seemed like what I was meant to be doing. I
Mm.
didn't really give it much thought, and then I probably thought about it and like decided that this is what I'm supposed to be doing around 19 when I moved to Bath, and like because you had to make a decision. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Everything else was kind of just like, oh, you play well, and then you go to the next year, and then they give you a contract, and but then I actually had to make a conscious decision to decide to go to Bath. So when I did that, I think that's probably when I probably focused a bit more.
And you did. So you signed for Wasps the year before I signed. So talk us through that year. How it started and effectively how you ended up moving on to Bath.
Well, so like I was playing in my last year at school, I was playing, and we got to the Daily Mail final, and I played a lot of rugby, and we won that. And they came to the school and then offered me a contract. I was like, yeah, cool, I'll take it. Um, but I'd hurt my back in that year, but I didn't really think much of it. And then I go into preseason and I can't really do stuff. Like I'm in pain, sort of. So then we sort of rehab it. Rehab was so shoddy, man. It was just useless. Um, and I never really returned. Like I never really play. And then it comes to the end of the season, and it's sort of like you've got a 1 year contract. What are you gonna do? Continue doing this, or are you gonna just quit rugby basically? And they just said, okay, go and play a little bit. So I went to Roslyn Park, maybe played one game, and then I went to Bath and then tried to play there. Couldn't even play there really. Um, but they still offered me a sort of trial for the summer, and then the summer came and I got that and kept it moving.
So when you were going through that year at Wasps, who was in charge? Had it transitioned to Matt
Yes, it
Davies?
changed halfway through, so it was Lloydie, probably until about October maybe, and then he stepped like he didn't get stepped down, but he left, and then what's his name came through, Matt.
Yeah.
Matt, yeah, Matt, pagan man. Oh, like that guy,
Hey,
man.
me and you both, mate. He owes me money, and one day I'm coming to collect. I tell you now.
Honestly, bro, I swear to God, if I ever see that fat head again, bro, we're having a conversation, like, because you can't talk to people how you used to talk to people, man. I don't like it.
That's eventually why I went out the job, isn't it?
Yeah, man. Yeah, I don't like that at all. we're children as well, you know. Like you're talking to me like that. What the fuck, man? But yeah,
I
man.
remember he used to get us in huddles and he'd go, if I was one of your parents, I'd be so fucking disappointed in every single one of you. You're all you and I'd be there like, mate, I'm 16 years old, like leave me alone.
In
Like I
it,
don't
bro, lad.
like yeah, mental, mate, when you look at it. So did he I heard a whisper that he tried to move you to hooker at one point. Was that right?
Yeah, that was like a big thing actually. They tried to do that while I was still at school. Lloydie actually tried to do that. It wasn't Matt so much. Matt was probably
Yeah.
the first to go play prop. But Lloydie and like the England 18s coaches, so it was like Peely at the time and Waltz. They wanted me to move to hooker, but like at school, my school coach, like thinking about it now, I can't believe he just didn't do it. But he was like, nah, like Beno plays best at Lucid, so I'm gonna keep playing him at Lucid like it was a professional environment. Like, bro, just play me where I need to play so I can play for England. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He kept saying, nah, no, I'm not doing it. So he just always played me at Lucid and would let me throw in like here, there sometimes. But like throwing was a problem, man. Like there was one game that was like I was actually talking about the other day. Like it was literally like PTSD for me. Like I could not hit anybody. Like, and obviously when you're 18 or 17 at this time, you don't really have a process. So like when
Mm.
things are going badly, you don't know how to like reset and then go again. It just kept going bad, and I just the ball would go out, and I just think this is going to be a long day.
Wait, do you know what I remember? I remember, I don't know why I remember it so clearly, like I said, because obviously I looked up to you and Lundberg and the older boys. I remember your highlights. You released a highlight package when you were 18, and all the clips, there was just one throw, and it
Yeah,
was straight in the nuts at the front of the line out. And I
and they
was
put
like,
it in slow motion as well.
yeah, yeah, and I was like, that'll do it. That'll do it.
Yeah, they put it in slow motion. I was like, Jesus Christ, man.
You take it to the grave, mate. Millions have
Yeah,
seen it.
man. Trust. Yeah,
So moving on, obviously you went to Bath and you said that you struggled initially playing and obviously getting fit with the back issue. How did that eventually, get resolved?
anti-inflams, man. Like I took anti-inflams and like I got a injection. So like I don't know if you remember Wasps at this particular time. They actually bust us, so I could probably talk about it. But they have no bread. Like they didn't pay us like literally nothing. Like I think it was actually criminal what they paid us.
Mm.
Um, and then on top of that, they didn't insure their academy players. So like once I was injured, I'm like, okay, can we inject my back or something? And they were like, no. So obviously I don't have the money to go and do it all myself. They don't have the money to do it within the club. So it's sort of like, how are we supposed to fix this issue? And they didn't even really want to scan it. So I had to pay for the MRI scan myself. I had to borrow money from one of my friends to pay for the MRI scan and then borrow money from him to get the injection on my back.
Fucking
Uh,
hell.
and that kind of kept me alive because once I did those two things and then my back felt okay, then I could go for that summer and do the training at Bath. But if I didn't do that, I would have been in the mud completely, to be fair. So that's quite good he did that, to be fair.
Did you feel like Bath helped you get back into it, like they should have done, or do you think you were rushed, or do you think you just had to crack on because you were under the pump to almost, perform?
Yeah, I just had to crack on. Like, those I feel it's maybe slightly different now, and I think when I look at academy players, but like when you're looking from the outside in, your perspective is always quite different. Um, but at that time, it was just sort of like, can you do this? So I think there was like some element or some idea that like he doesn't really want it, like sort of thing. Um, that he's just here because he can sort of do it. So it was a matter of like actually showing them that you actually wanted to do it. And I think that was like quite a large factor in their decision making process. It was like
Yeah.
me, George Wakathoki, that went. You remember George?
Yeah, I remember Fiji.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
yeah,
went
yeah.
to a trial. They obviously gave him the contract straight after the game. I didn't finish the game. And then they said come for the summer, and then they gave me the contract in the summer at the end of that summer. So I think it was a matter of just completing preseason. And they just threw me in at the deep end. Even though I did terrible, like I was at the back of every fitness, like
Yeah.
everything, but they were just like, if you do it, then we'll give you a chance, basically, and that's basically it, really.
Probably the best way to go. Just stick you in the deep water and see if you can
Yeah,
swim, and rest is history. So obviously you got fit at Bath, and you made your, was it your Prem debut? Was it 2017? Was it around that time?
well, I made my Prem debut before that. I made my Prem debut in that first year. So like that pre-season, in that first year, I ended up making my Prem debut. I played like twice in the Prem. Like for like like uh for like a total of like 10 minutes, but like I played my
Take it. Yeah.
first year that year, yeah, in 2014.
And then did you sign as a first teamer for the following year?
Fuck no. Bro, I was like, so they had me on like 8K that first year, bro. Oh my god.
Really?
I was on like 8K and it goes up to like 15K. Then it goes up to like 20K. So I was like on ACAD, like for like 4 years or something. They had me in the mud because even by that fourth year, I mean, I was coming off the bench regularly. I was earning fucking peanuts, bro. So yeah, so like no, I don't think I got my first team contract until maybe 2017, 2018 season. Because that's when I first got into the England squad. And I remember that was like the time I got that contract.
So talk us through first getting in the EPS after having a few good years, a few good years, and then finally getting the crack. Like, how did that go?
That was like, let me not lie to you, I was like kind of shocked. When I first got the email, was it an email? So I was living at Anthony's house. I can remember it so vividly. Like I woke up and Anthony Watson was like, "Did you get an email?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And we were just gassed because obviously I was living with Anthony and JJ at the time, and obviously they were playing
Yeah.
regularly. It was me, just living there. So then we had to go down to Brighton. I remember being bare nervous, like, and on my phone was bugging. So I have this thing where I just keep the same phone for years because I don't really care for technology like that. And I'm in camp now, and everything goes through WhatsApp in camp. Like they tell you your schedule through WhatsApp. They tell you like everywhere you have to be. If there's changes to the schedule, it's through WhatsApp. And my phone was bugging, so it wouldn't turn on. So, and this is like the first day in camp. So like my phone's not turning on and I'm just bugging and I'm panicking the whole time. And but lucky, like I don't even think Mara was there for this camp because that helps me quite a lot when Mara was there in the early days. But like Anthony was there and JJ were there, so I would just like sit next to them and there. Dylan Hartley was like captain at the time and stuff like that, and he was quite helpful and people were just helpful at the time, yeah.
What was your relationship with? How did you find working with Eddie for that period of time?
Me and Eddie like had a real good relationship, to be fair.
Yeah.
He was always like quite like I think he just got me. I think some coaches just don't get people. Like that's basically like an issue. They want the best for you, but they just don't get how you respond to things or how we're gonna get you to play well or get you to improve. And he just understood how I like worked as a human. And I think that's why we kind of got along. And I had quite a close relationship with him, to be fair.
Beno, firstly, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having
You
me.
hear you hear a lot of players talk about coaches got great people skills, but then the way they coach probably doesn't fit the squad or the particular type of playing group. Or on the other flip of the coin is the coach really knows how to coach, but then he doesn't have the great people skills. Do you think Eddie had one, both, or had both of those kind of talents?
I think he had both. I think he had both. But like he has I'm coming from like I want to be clear here. I'm coming from like quite a biased perspective. You ask people that like came into camp and then never came in again, they would say he doesn't have the greatest people skills. Do you understand?
Mm.
But like obviously for me, he had good personal people skills. And like even if he didn't, I truly think he actually tried to. Because he was quite a bright man. Like he's one of those people that knew something about everything. whether they know like a lot about that particular topic, you probably not, but they know something, and then you're able to discuss that with him. And he was really good at that, I felt. And he tried, but I just think like when you like at any age you become a certain person, and obviously you're here, George is here, etc. Like you view the world in a certain way, and as a result of the way you view the world, it's going to affect the people that you want to work with. Um, and I think that played in quite heavily on some of his decision makings, personnel wise.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's one of those things where if you're always going to be working with different personalities, there's always going to be someone that is affected.
Yeah, precisely. Yeah, like to like someone with a particular personality, you have to dislike someone else. If that makes sense, like you can't like two opposing personalities. Because
you can't keep everyone
like
happy.
one personality. Yeah, exactly.
And then I guess the second question to that is, I mean, you've heard him openly say that over his coaching career, he's kind of gone a little bit softer. How do you attest to that?
That he's got softer.
Yeah, in his coaching. Yeah,
100%. I swear to God, the first day I stepped into that Brighton camp that I was talking about, I swear these brothers tried to kill me. I swear to you. That was brutal. I swear to God. Lord, strike me down if I'm lying. This
talk us through turning up to the camp and then finishing the day from start to finish. Talk us through how they tried to
like how like it's very difficult because I don't remember like exactly. You know, you can't remember exactly how things go, but you can remember how you feel about it. And I can just remember I had never trained like that before, and that was like my first season of Premiership rugby having started consistently. So it was sort of like a shock. And the maddest thing there was a game at the weekend. So it wasn't like it was a Monday, Tuesday camp with a game on the Saturday. So it wasn't like one of the fallow week ones where they're hard, but like at least you're resting over the weekend. We had to train this hard on Monday, Tuesday to then go back to Bath and play against it was Worcester at the time on the Saturday. There's one time, so I'm like doing the warm up. Imagine this, yeah. I'm doing the warm up, and Eddie's like, "Beno, mate, do you want me to pull you out?" And I'm like, no. And he was like adamant he was gonna pull me out the session, not because like just because it was so hard for me at the beginning. I was just finding it so tough. In the warm up, I swear to God, no word of a lie. This is the warm up, and he wanted to like pull me out because I was just finding the warm up tough. And I was just like adamant that I wasn't gonna leave the session in the warm up. Like you can't come back from things like that. So yeah, you can't return from that. So I just thought I'd stick it out and finish the session. Like, but yeah, I just got through it. Really, that was it at the early stages. But now maybe also there's some like revisionist history because I'm fitter now and I'm better now and I might find the sessions easier now. But I think the sessions have got a little bit tamer from what they were in like 2017, 18 to when I was last in camp in what 2021, 22. Yeah.
Do you think Eddie's way of dealing with certain people, you highlighted that he'd obviously got softer as the years had gone on. Do you think that's a result of what's going on in terms of like mental health, the way you speak to people, the way people take information? Do you think he's adapted to the, arguably the current climate, or do you think he's just seen rugby move in a certain way whereby he's got to adapt and be a little bit softer around the edges?
It's tough, like, because we're speculating somewhat, but I think essentially he knows the people he's dealing with a little bit better. Like he may have set out his stall at the beginning, so like the worst of this person, like you know what this person's capable of, and then over a period of time you can soften because they understand what you're capable of, and they're not going to take the piss at this point. But that's like sort of speculation. I don't really know why. There was a factor as well that there was one Six Nations we were in and we did badly, and he was sort of like, well, we've trained this hard and I've gone this hard at you over this period of time, and this has been the result. Like, we haven't done that well. So, like, obviously, if we haven't done that well, I have to change something that we're doing. And I remember him saying something to that effect, that like, if we can't keep doing the same thing over and over again, if we're not getting the result that we want. And then I think there was sort of a shift then, around 2018.
It's
So
almost,
obviously
it's almost.
go on.
Go on,
Sorry, Ben.
go on, George.
No,
I was
you
gonna
go.
say,
You go.
it's almost like he's become a bit more retrospective on his coaching method style to fit the mold of players he has.
Yeah, like, that's. Do you remember when I was saying like he constantly wants to improve? That's what I was trying to explain essentially. Like, it is like an awareness and an understanding of the group you've got and like the results that you're getting and the way that you're training, and then adapting that accordingly. And he genuinely does that. Like, I don't know if that comes across and when he speaks publicly, but he genuinely tries to change and adapt and improve every single time. Or that's what I felt, at least. Yeah.
So obviously you made the 2018 tour squad to South Africa, and then injury struck.
Yeah.
Talk us through the build up to that, and obviously the event happening itself, and you know how you progressed past it.
Like, I had my back injury before that, but I'd never been like properly injured before, like where I needed surgery. So like, basically what's happened is I've come around the corner on like a carry, um, and someone's hit my knee. And as they've hit my knee, it's gone like, oh fuck. And then someone's piled into it again. And it's obviously training. Someone's piled into it again, and it's basically like just blown out the back. And so like my knee's fully gone out the back, and it tore like my hamstring, and my every ligament was torn, and there's something called like your post-lateral corner, which was torn, and everything was torn in the knee. Um, and I just remember like screaming, like I was like, oh fuck. And I tried to like put my foot down, and I couldn't like step on it. And then I needed to be like hobbled off the pitch. And then I caught a, because I didn't have my car with me, and we were in Brighton. Brighton, that's why I hate Brighton. This was like another camp in Brighton, like later on. And I had to get a cab from Brighton back home. I remember just pulling up on my mum just looking at me, and I'm just like, boy, I don't even know. And I thought it was bad in that, but like I had to view apartments in Bath like the following day. So I got in the car and drove to Bath.
Yeah.
So as I've driven to Bath now with my lovely lady friend, to view these apartments, we're like hobbling around the whole of Bath, but I'm not thinking it's too bad. And then I go and see Anthony Jay, and we're chilling, going for breakfast. Then when I went for breakfast, I got this call from my physio, and he said like, it's like a bomb's gone off in your knee. Your knee's basically exploded. Um, and like, I think it hit me at that point. And I was like, like he said something like, your ACL is disrupted. And I was like, oh, so does that mean I haven't torn my ACL? Like, and obviously it didn't mean I had torn my ACL, but like I was like, oh, it's just like uncomfortable, like it's, you know what I mean? I remember that moment so clearly, because I was like, oh, so like I haven't torn it, and he's like, no, you've torn it, and I what just sank at that point. And yeah, and from that point onwards, I remember them telling me like it was going to be like 12 to 18 months to come back, and it just gave me like an opportunity to aim for something. So I just aimed for like 9 months, and I was just like working hard to try to do 9 months. Jack Willis was even in the hospital with me at the time as well, because he had done something similar. And yeah, so it was just like working to try, and he was working the same. And I think he came back around similar times, because we got injured like in a week of each other, because he was supposed to go on that South African tour as well.
Yes, yeah.
So yeah, so we got quite close during that period. And then yeah, I just worked basically. I just thought, let me try to give you a goal and try and do better than what they're telling me, and see how it goes really.
But Beno, do you find that, like, I know when I'm working with players, before they have an injury, like especially a major injury, they sometimes struggle with a process or getting into consistent habits. Did you find after that first major injury that you became a lot more refined at your process?
Yeah, I think you do. Yeah, definitely. Um, I won't lie. The rehab process is like quite therapeutic for me. Like as miserable as you are, like at the beginning, it's such a it's the most like rewarding process I find. Like games, you can train real well, and you can work really hard, but like the game may not just give you the opportunities to be great. Does that make sense? So like you just may not get the carries that day. You may not get the defensive shots. You can get up off the floor quickly and you can set early and all those factors you can do, but like it just may not have the impact on the game you want it to have. Whilst like rehab is just like such a fine process where like I do X, Y, Z well enough over a consistent period of time and I'll get the result. Like I will get it. Um Fortunately, like I think like I have a good strength base, which is maybe different to some people. Like I have a good base I'm building from with these injuries. So like returning to your what's it called? Returning to your baseline is like you've got a good baseline already, whilst like with other people it's maybe not the same. So that's why I do enjoy that process. I won't lie, yeah.
You got through the rehab process for that, and then am I right in saying you then played for against the Barbarians at Twickenham? Is that right?
Yeah, yeah, man did his research today, George. Yeah,
Normally it's just pop-up picture books for me normally, mate, but I've had to put a bit of graft in for this.
yeah, he did his work. Yeah,
So that, yeah, how rewarding was that off the back of what had gone on?
let me not lie, I wasn't too happy because that was the World Cup year. So like
Mm.
I'd done the 2018, and then I'd sort of come back, and I was hoping to try and get like somewhere near that squad. But like when they announced that you're going with the Barbars, you at that year, it was like you're not going to the World Cup. So I remember it was like me, it was like Marcus, it was like Joe Marchant, like Lewis Ludlam. There was a lot of people in that team that's actually playing now, to be fair. Um, and yeah, from that they just said you're not gonna. It was very unlikely. Lewis did, to be fair, but it was very unlikely that you were gonna go from Barbars um to the World Cup. So I was like a little bit disappointed, but it was a sick week. Like you get paid well and you play rugby all week with like young people as well, because it was all young people.
Mm.
It was actually like a lot of fun that week. That was like a very memorable week for me, to be fair. But yeah, it was a little bit disappointing that I wasn't gonna get to go to the World Cup. Let me not lie.
Did you have any indication that there might have been a possibility?
What, to go to the World Cup?
Yeah, yeah.
Not really. Like there's always that hope. Like, but it was a very small percentage. And like you weren't gonna play. I think a factor in like Lewis going was he trains really well, like Luds.
Mm.
He's like a sick trainer. So I think that like if you're not gonna play, at least be a sick trainer. Do
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, and
yeah,
I
yeah.
wouldn't say I'm like the best trainer. Not like you're bad, but like there's some people who train exceptionally well. Do you know what I mean? And he's like one of them. And if you're not gonna play and you're gonna be in the squad, at least what you can add is your quality during training to improve others. Do you know what I mean? And I thought he was real good at that.
So you came through that, played for England against the Barbars, and then am I right in saying you hit another injury wall after that, or maybe a season afterwards?
Nah, nah. I got hot this period. This was my hot period. I won't lie to you. Yeah, this is where I got hot. I came back from that season, and then in that September, we played we played a lot, and then it goes round into COVID. So I played well into COVID, and then the COVID came back. Like when we came back after COVID, I played real well, and like bar for like fourth. That's when we went on like a unbeaten run, and we ended up fourth. And then I was in the England squad again throughout the autumn and the Six Nations. Did I go in the summer? Well, yeah, and then the summer as well, and then I got capped the year after that, basically. No, that's a lie. I played the autumn, and then I got capped in the Six Nations in 2021. That's basically what happened.
So how much of, like, obviously to go through what you did and to then come out the other end with your first cap, like how much did that mean? Also, it meant a lot, obviously. But in terms of, like, did you ever reflect on the process that got you to that point, and how tough it was, and maybe where your headspace was at certain points throughout that time?
Yeah, I got super focused, like proper focused. Like I remember, like I'd cook meals, like so, like I still wanted to like try and like balance my life. So like I remember this one time, I just can't believe I did this. So sad. I used to like cook all my meals, so I cooked all the meals, and I would like see my friends still, and some of my friends were up in like Manchester, so I go link them. We'd go out, and like I come back and eat the meal. Do you know what I mean? Like that's like that's some of the stuff I did. And I remember I had to sit down with Eddie one time, and he was like, "Mate, what's your favorite food, mate?" And I was like, "Bro, like I love burgers, like." And he was like, "Okay, um, you can eat a burger when you get a cap, like, stop eating burgers and you can eat when you get a cap." So, but this was in like I'd say January 2020, and I thought I was gonna get capped in the Six Nations or in the summer. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I thought I was getting my cap. I thought, okay, you have to do is not eat a burger for 2 months, Spence. Next thing you know, you don't get that cap then. And then in the summer, there is no summer really because of COVID. And then autumn comes and I don't get capped in the autumn either. So I'm thinking, right, this is taking a piss because you get to like the summer now and you haven't eaten. Do you know what I mean? Like I haven't eaten. And like when I say I smash burgers, like I enjoy them, like I fully do. So it gets to like this whole point, and I literally go a whole like over a year without eating any because we had like made this pact to not eat one until you got capped. And like I just stuck at it and just got super focused, and I just wouldn't, and I just didn't deviate from it basically. For that whole
Was
period.
that pact just between you and Eddie, or were there other players involved?
No, it was just between me and Eddie. Like I'll tell you some of the stuff that he's done. But that was just between me and Eddie, and there was one other guy there. I can't remember his name. He's like some crazy Australian guy with like white hair. I can't remember his name for the life. He's like Eddie's best friend or something. He's always in camp. But yeah, that's basically what he said to me at the time, and I just stuck with that, and I just became focused for that period of time to try and achieve that cap. Basically.
And do you think those periods of time in rehab years prior had helped you, even though it was a minute thing to withdraw from eating a burger?
Yeah,
Do you
like
think that?
I struggle to see that, like, obviously the actual fact of eating a burger is it's like it's not important. Do you know what I mean? Like
It's to
it's
you.
more about pardon?
I said it is to you.
Yeah. like it doesn't really change your performance. Like, whether I ate them or I didn't, it doesn't particularly affect your performance like that. But the rehab process like helped me with preparation. That's probably what the best thing I learned from rehab, like how you can
Yep.
prepare for things. Because like you're no longer the same person, like you're no longer the same athlete, but you can still perform the same, but you're no longer the same athlete. So you have to learn how to prepare to be the athlete that you are now. When you have such major surgery, like obviously if you injure, like you got your small hamstring strains and stuff, like it's a little bit different. But like when you have major surgery, you're no longer the same athlete. So you have to find a way to perform as the same athlete, um, which you can still do, I think. Yeah. So you just take longer. And I think that translated and that transferred into that process.
So during the rehab periods, obviously, that you went through and you have been through, and you are currently going through, would you say you really found out what worked for you and what made you get the best out of every session? Or were there moments where you were like, fucking hell, what is going on? Who's running this? Who's writing this? Was there any cowboy moments amongst that, or did it, was it quite smooth?
But like if you talk to any of my SNCs, maybe because like Kia, one of our friends, is like was my first ever like true SNC coach. I'm like quite I'm always asking questions. Like I'm on my SNC and physios, I'm on their necks. Like especially with how my back was dealt with at the beginning at Wasps. And I also did my hamstring that they didn't like have surgery on at Wasps as well. So like all those elements are why I'm just on physio's next and on SSC's next. And like I understand that like I'm not the most agreeable person and like easy to work with, I would say. Um, just because I'm just always asking questions of them and like expecting more of them. And they do the best job they can do. But it's so different when you've got one person trying to oversee 8 people. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's very difficult to be at your best whilst it's one person overseeing one person for me. So I understand and I'm picking every single moment to try and improve. And so I just question them and make it quite challenging in general, yeah.
What would you say was the lowest point you were at when you were going through the rehab process?
I was never really low in my first one. My second one, I was probably quite low because I just had that summer where I was like in a leadership group with England and stuff. And then it comes into the beginning of the season and I'm then supposed to play. And just like the game before Autumn Nations is about to begin, I get injured. And then Genji goes out and Joe goes out. No, Genji and Mako go out. And I'm there like, I should really be playing, you know? So that was sad. But that wasn't even the worst. This one recently topped it because like that's all happened. You've then fought to come back, and I've come back at the end of the season, then done a whole preseason, played in all the preseason games, and in the first game of the season in Premiership, you're injured again. And they're big. This one was a big one as well. So it was just that one. That one really got me just because you've done the work. So like you remember how I say like you do the work and you get the reward. I do the work. I did the work, and I just got the reward, and then it was taken away from me. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah,
the whole process of it or what I value in it was sort of taken away from me again, which was pretty sad, but it's the game we signed up to play in it. So you just have to get
true
and go again.
With go on, sorry, go Ben.
Did you feel over those different injuries, or probably not too different, two knees, is that right, or 3?
So it was that first one, the ACL and all the other ligaments, and then the right one was ACL and MCL, and then the latest one has been the patella tendon. I just tore that.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you feel that on the second and the third one you've kind of streamlined your thought process a little more when you're in rehab?
I stopped sweating the small things more than anything in rehab in the second and third one. In the first one, I'm like, in the first one, the surgeon says like you walk at 6 weeks or you come out your brace at 4 weeks. You can't load it until 12 weeks. Like I stopped sweating all of that in the second and third one. I became a little bit. We went a bit more on feel, and I went a bit more on feel because it just didn't matter in the end. And those are created so the surgeon is safe in a sense. Does that make sense? On the second and third one, there's a little bit more time pressure because in that first one, it's your first big injury. You know, you take your time, you come back when you come back, sort of thing. But the second and third one, it was like you're close to achieving all those things that you wanted to achieve when you started your career, Ben's like. So we had to. There was a little bit more time pressure on the second and third, and I just stopped sweating stuff. And I was just like, we'll just go out, we'll do this, we'll load it, we'll get it strong, we'll do the rehab, and we'll get there. Do you get what I mean? And that's the way I focused on the second and third one rather than thinking, okay, Benz, you have to do this at this particular time. You have to take your collagen here. You have to do this. And it's sort of like, just like, I got back quicker, do you know? And it just took the edge off all the whole process. And I probably didn't factor in how much stress it caused me to try and be pernickety about everything. And stress is a cost that you really can't afford in the healing process. So I tried to alleviate that slightly, yeah.
And then obviously, was it during the rehab process of the second knee? Is that right that you then, went off field and chose to come up with everybody's game? Is that
Everybody's
right?
game started. Nah, so I was playing when I first started everybody's game, and COVID is when I actually shot it all. But prep to win is when I was injured. So yeah, yeah.
So talk us through the idea behind everybody's game and what actually led you to that moment. Had it always been something you wanted to do outside of the game, or was it something you just thought, fuck it, this is going to be a hit and there's a reason why I'm going to do it and I've got the time, so I'm going to crack on with it?
Well, so like, bro, like, what happened was when when I got first in the England squad, yeah, I didn't really have much media. And they announced me in the squad, and I swear to God, bruv, it was like a round table. There was like 8 journalists sitting there from all the national newspapers trying to chat to me. And cool, so I chat to them now, and the articles come out, and I'm looking at these articles thinking, brother, this is not what I told you. This is not what I said. And I'm thinking, rah, like, I remember there was another one at the Daily Mail that when they interviewed me about something, and the headline that they put, I thought these guys are sick. Like these guys just don't get it. Like they they don't really care about you. They care about the product. And from that point onwards, I was like, anything I want to say. That's why I don't really do many podcasts, even to be fair. But this is a better form of media. Any
It will be at one point. It will be. It's so bad. It's so bad.
like anything I want to say, I want it to be. I want it to come out of my mouth. I want people to see it come out of my mouth and the context of it all, rather than like talking to journalists and then there's a medium in between yourself and the reader or the consumer or whatever it is. I just wanted to basically take out the middleman. And that's why I started everybody's game. So I had that message that was important to me. And I thought, we can't just go tell newspapers and have it as an article. We have to hear it from the horse's mouth. So that's why I started it.
How long did that take from start to finish?
It took a lot, like from the first day we shot something in October 2019, but that sort of got put on the back burner because I was then like struggling to find the time to do everything. And then obviously COVID in March, so it was probably from April until came out in November, but we finished shooting in like June. But then got it all finished in August, September, and then came out in November. So it was quick. That's a quick turnaround, really, for film.
Yeah. And were you happy with how it turned out?
At the time I was, but I couldn't even. I can't even bring myself to watching it back. Like I think it's just like it's a very important message, and it's actually like a very interesting documentary. But like I think my prep to win was just better. I think the second one I did was better, and I hope the third one I do is better. And I feel the same way about the second one. Do you know what I mean? So I like that at the time.
I'll be honest, Beno. I only watched your first one the other week, this week actually. Do you feel is the second one out on Amazon?
Yeah.
So do you feel that going forward you want to? I'm not sure whether lots of people in the Southern Hemisphere are aware of your docos. And I know I came across it via George and speaking to Keir. Do you feel that in future docos you might want to go down to the Southern Hemisphere and do something?
Yeah, like at some point, like, do you know when I did make everybody's game, like I got a lot of messages about how Australia's system's quite similar. And that was spoken about quite heavily. and I do have an interest in doing something over there at some point. I'm not sure when. Like let me not lie to you. When I made the first one, I didn't really plan on making a second one.
Right.
So it was just sort of like something that happened and something that I thought I was okay at and something I enjoyed doing. If the story comes, which I think could come, which is the right one, I'll go and do it in the Southern Hemisphere. But it's just a matter of timing with all these things. It's so.
And when I say that, it wasn't more that I thought it was a great doco. It was more that I think rugby is one of those things that's so far spread around the world, and the fact that other people I've spoken to down in Australia might not know about it, but should know about it.
Yeah,
and I think it's an important message that probably needs to be spread further than what people are aware of.
Yeah, 100. Like one thing I learned while I was making films, because I worked on every aspect of the film. So like it wasn't like I just did the creative process and just left it there. I did the producing, the marketing, the accounting. So I did every facet of the film. And one thing I learned, well, I overseed every facet of the film at least. But what I learned is that like the marketing is so important. There's no point even having like a great product that like not everybody sees. And I tried to do more in the second one, and hopefully I'll have a better idea of how to approach the third one even. But the marketing of it all is literally the most important thing, because you can have the best product in the world, if no one buys it, then it's not really valuable.
When you finished the film, or whilst you were filming Everybody's Game, did you at one point think, fucking hell, this is nice because I'm so far detached from rugby itself, being at the club, that monotonous process that can sometimes be quite draining? Was it nice to have something completely different to invest all your time in?
Yeah, I'm cautious about saying this because I think some people had some horrible lockdown memories and lockdown times. But that day that they said that like we're all going home, I swear to God, it was one of the best days of my life. I swear to God. I've never felt, because you know what? I say this to people, before that moment in life, everything had just kept going. Like it just felt you were like a mouse in a wheel and it just kept going. Nothing ever got called off, ever. And then all of a sudden, they're like, you lot can go home and you don't have to do anything. I said, oh my God. I genuinely, that was the happiest day of my life. I can remember, we were supposed to play London Irish on the weekend. Football had been cancelled the week before. And we're supposed to go out to train. And we're like, nah, we're not gonna, we don't want to train, like, because COVID was going around and people were saying they don't want to train, etc., etc. And like, no one knew what it was. And then the coach is like pissed, and he calls like the leadership, and we'll go outside, and he's pissed, and he's like, "How can you not want to train? This, da. Okay, we're not going to train today." He comes back in and he says, "Okay, we're not going to train today." Next thing you know, we're off, and we don't see them again for 3 months. So like, but anyway, back to what you said. But yeah, like that whole process of like making that stuff was just so much fun. Like it was such a learning curve as well. Like I'd be on Google and YouTube just trying to learn how to like where you put in music, how you put in music, and just all those little things. And I proper enjoyed the process of making it at the beginning. At the end, it's a little bit different. Trying to sell something is very different to like making something. But
maybe you did all right though, didn't you?
Yeah, I didn't do too bad. I did all right.
Exactly. And talk to us about the Prep to Win. Why Harlequins? And what made you? Obviously, there's not many documentaries that really give you an insight into rugby, in my opinion. They're all very box ticky. They're quite PG. Like you know yourself. You walk down the corridor of a rugby club in the morning, and there's shit that you could not show anyone because it's weird, and blokes are doing weird stuff, and they're saying shit that will get them in prison and whatever. But what made you go, right, there's a hole in the market here, I'm going to exploit it by doing Prep to Win?
yeah, so like I just don't think people fully value or fully understand like what it takes to be a professional rugby player. Like I think people have like these old people that watch rugby just have like a warped understanding of what it takes. Like for example, like tackling. Like when I see the discourse about how people should tackle, I'm like, bro, when I'm defending, I'm trying to split this guy in half. Like that's what I'm trying to do, and you want me to worry about how perfect my collision is? Like, do you understand? Like,
Yeah, yeah,
and that's not what we think about as players. Whilst like as fans, all you think about is how it looks to you, the aesthetics of it all. Whilst all I'm thinking about is I'm trying to get this guy going backwards. And that's what I tried to show, and that's what I was trying to like convey in the film. Like I did like this element on box kicking and like the idea behind it and the reasons behind it, because all they complain about is kicking. Like I was be at the rep and the fans are just complaining about kicking. And the only reason why I think people complain about things is because they don't understand its purpose. So I
yeah.
thought, okay, if I can provide some understanding to the purpose of why we do everything we do on the pitch and what we're trying to gain, you will enjoy the game a lot more. And that was basically like what I was trying to do. And I feel like I did it a little bit, but like I only had 3 episodes and I still wanted to understand, people needed to understand around about injuries and the rest of it and concussion. And there's just a lot of elements I tried to fit into one. But I tried, sure.
With that, were you, obviously you said you tried to fit a lot of it into a small, 3 episodes. Has that left you thinking whatever the next project might be, if it's in rugby, what you can attack later down the line in terms of, a second prep to win or a third or whatever? Have you got any ideas of the message
Yeah,
that you want to
I've
get
got loads
across?
of ideas around like what we can discuss in rugby. It's just so it's such a vast area, like to discuss. Like I truly think there are some freaks that play rugby. Like I truly believe it's the most challenging team sport.
Mm.
It's you have to be able to be decent at everything. Um, and I just don't think that's conveyed well enough by the media or by people who are supposed to be rugby experts, and show the game in its true light. So that's basically what I tried to do, or I'm trying to do with Prep to Win, to show like even the battlers. There are some people who are very meaty athletes, and you're able to be a professional rugby player through like sheer will. Um, and there were those at Premiership level. Sometimes they might not reach the heights, but they earn a very decent living by like being people who just have like a great mentality around rugby and work. So that's what I really wanted to try and show off, basically.
When you're producing and trying to think of other ideas, are there leads you take out of other books, whether it be sport or business, and especially because you alluded to rugby being so vast and there is so much to try and teach and give people an understanding on. Do you think other sports do it well?
Yeah, so like there was one I referenced this just because it's like I think probably the most watched sports doc is The Last Dance. There was like a moment where Rodman's like explaining rebounds, and he's talking about how he watches how the ball comes down and the spin on the ball and like the timing of his jump. And he was like obviously one of the greatest rebounders. But like obviously to a non-fan, you're just watching basketball, just thinking all he has to do is catch the ball when it bounces from the back of the rim, right?
Yeah.
And I felt that intricacy is the most interesting thing about sport. How people prepare and understand the game so differently, to you, the fan, and it gives you so much more admiration for these people that are doing that. And that's probably the biggest example of that, and that's where I pull a little bit from that and those sort of ideas to try and show stuff. So I tried to show it with the box kicking a little bit, and yeah, that's basically it, really.
Going back to your point about the media and the way they portray the game to the general public, you know, the people that watch at the Rec on a Saturday or wherever. Would you say that obviously, you know, the past couple of years, rugby's probably been highlighted to be very far behind other sports in terms of development, exposure, you know, interacting with the fans, all that stuff. Would you say that the media and the way they portray rugby in this country is quite backwards? Do you think it has to move on a bit? Do you think there needs to be, you know, they need to close that gap between the player and the fans? Because at the moment, I don't think they do close that gap whatsoever. If you get what I'm saying.
Yeah. I'm not sure whether you need to close the gap as such. Like that's not. I don't know if that's a huge issue. I feel like there's like an identity crisis with the sport, because essentially, like we rugby before was played by obviously a lot of gentlemen who played it as like a hobby. And the fact they played it as a hobby is that that's how they see the game. And fortunately or unfortunately, those people are the people now running the game. And often to have brilliant strategies and how you present the game, you have to have people that have innovative ideas and people that haven't seen it the same way as you the whole time. And I think when those people are still running the game and then employing similar people to themselves, you end up getting a product which isn't presented that well. And that's basically my issue. It's like torn between a community sport and a spectator sport because they want a load of people to play rugby on Saturdays and Sundays, but a lot of people can't do what we do on every Saturday in the Premiership or in the Six Nations, for example. They can't do it. So it's sort of like, well, what are you? Are you a community sport or are you a spectator sport? And they're kind of stuck between the two. And until they decide what they are and want to present it as such, it's always going to be struggling a little bit, I think.
Brings me on to a question that I was going to ask you. What would you say, and this is obviously you can answer it how you want, what is, if you could change one thing about the current rugby industry, it could be anything, what would you change about it?
What else? Like anything, like is it like anything? Like
it could be anything. You can say whatever. Obviously, you can say whatever you want, or we can edit it. But you can say whatever you want.
I'd like them to increase the TV deals. So like how much they get paid, how much they charge for games to be on TV, and to reduce the schedule of games. Those two things I would change.
So that's an interesting topic you bring up, Beno, because at the moment in Australia with the rugby league, they're having the dilemma with between the NRL and the Rugby League Players Association on a collective bargaining agreement. And one of the things that comes up is the revenue from games and things like that being a split between players and NRL. Is that something you'd like to see more of?
Yeah, like because I don't know the financials is very difficult. Like I'm speculating, but like the reason why I said it is because I think we should be paid more. But that's kind of any industry who does any job that should be paid.
Yeah,
but like not a brilliant like, but like in comparison to our counterparts, like who play other sports at a high level, they're paid a lot more. And why they paid more? Because their TV deals are better. And it's obviously like a process. How do you get better TV deals, etc. But whether we should take some of that revenue, I'm not sure because I don't know how much that revenue is, and I don't know how much they take and how much goes to clubs. So we'd be speculating on the outcome. But like, I thought it was like quite an idealistic thing to say that we increase the TV deals, therefore we increase the money people get, and we reduce the amount of. So basically, what I'm saying is, pay me more and we do less. You know what I mean?
Give me the money.
Basically, what I'm saying, but. There's more nuance to it, but that's basically what I said. Yeah.
Following on from Ben's point about, obviously, I don't want to steer it towards the NRL, the rugby league boys, but obviously you've been through a lot of injuries yourself, a lot of big ones, which I think you'll agree, could have been quite touch and go in terms of whether you made it back from those injuries. The rugby league fellas at the minute, they are fighting for a form of aftercare post career based off your involvement within the league. You know, how many caps you might have got, similar to what the NRL have or what they're trying to implement. Would you like to see? Obviously, rugby's got a lot to cover before it probably gets to this point, but would you like to see some form of aftercare for players when their careers are coming to an end?
100%. That'd make complete sense. It'd make the game a lot more attractive for the players. How feasible that is, I'm not sure. But like, obviously, I don't think anyone would say no. I don't even think the organisers of rugby would say no. It's just a matter of how feasible is it, you know? Which is the problem, really. I'm just not sure how they do that.
And one more question, Benz. What's one myth about being a rugby player?
What's one myth about being? That's a good question. The myth about being a rugby player. That everyone drives nice cars. I think you get like as a professional athlete that like you drive a nice car and you live well and all of that. There's only a select few of us that do. But that's basically it. Like, I think that used to kill me as well. Like when I used to run around in my polo and people be like, "Oh, you play rugby?" And I'd be like, "Oh, yeah, I do." But yeah.
What's the worst type of car you've seen a full-time player drive?
I've seen a lot of Kias in my time.
The old Kia Sportage.
Yeah, man, I've seen a few Kias. I've seen a few Peugeot 206s. Nothing like horrible, to be fair. Like an actual, not like a first team player play. But yeah, like those sort of cars, basically. Like your runners, you see them on the road every day. Nothing too bad, you know, nothing too shabby.
Yep, just jam packed full of rugby players and rugby boots.
Basically, yeah.
Man, that'd be one smelly car.
Yeah, yeah, one just stinking, man. Yeah, bro.
Probably the same smell as Will Stewart's car, I'd imagine.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Thank you for having me, man.
Hey, mate, really appreciate it. It means a lot to us, and good luck with the rest of the rehab. And I'm sure you'll be fine.
Love, brother. Appreciate you.